Welcome back. We're gonna have another video today about catching snakes from the wild. And not just like the last one where, if you could check that out here if you missed it, where it's all about where to find them, what they do in the wild, what that's like, should we take them from the wild. This one more specifically is about how we take what we know about wild bull snakes and gopher snakes and how we apply it to proper husbandry at home. Because if you're like me, you're probably not out catching snakes to breed them and reproduce or anything like that. You just want to know how I can keep my pet snakes in an environment that's going to be equal to what it was like in the wild. So if you like this channel, please like, subscribe, and share this video. All that stuff helps, right? Get the word out about these awesome snakes and helps really benefit sort of movement that we're working with here. I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you missed the original panel, I'm going to put a link to that right up here as well. Without further ado, let's see what Lou, Glenn, and Jason have to say about keeping snakes as pets and mimicking their wild behavior. Jason, let's stay with you. How can we take what we know about their life in the wild and apply that towards better husbandry and captivity?
Just studying and learning the animals in the wild. I mean, you can learn a lot that way. Like, what temperatures bring these animals at? What temperatures are they active at? You know, you can learn a lot from.
So let me jump in right there. What temperatures are these animals active at?
I find in my collection and in the wild, like road, if I'm out road hunting or road cruising, or I'm gonna go look for animals in the wild, I like to keep my snake room at 78 degrees. I find a lot of snakes are very active in the upper 70s, not so much in the mid 80s. I mean, there's species, obviously razors, and there's some diurnal stuff that really thrive in the heat, but for the majority, I think the upper 70s is what snakes, that's a comfortable temperature, and they're very active. I find they're more active at those temperatures, upper 70s, low 80s.
Interesting. And so do you use individual, I know you, your collection is going to be a lot different from what some of the viewers of this video will likely have, but do you use individual heating elements, or you just have the room temps and rock with that?
Well, with my facilities, I struggle with heat, keeping the heat down. It's just where I'm at. But in the spring and even in the fall, I use heat tape. So my room will sometimes, like a lot of times in the spring, my room's 70 degrees, but I'll have heat tape where they can thermal regulate. They can get the temperature they're comfortable at. It does, and I found that having a hot spot, it's very important for females that are gravid. I think it's very important in development of eggs. It's not 100% necessary, but I found that they do better if you can give them a range of temperatures, the hot spot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it seems like with most of my pets, I'm always happy to see them off of the heat after they haven't eaten. And then when they eat and I open their tub and they're sitting on their heat, it gives you a sense that you've kind of got the right mix there, because they go to that heat as soon as they have food to digest, but they don't stay on it all the time. And so that's one of the nice things about kind of having a spot for them to digest the food, use it for fuel and body development and for reproduction. And at least in my experience with the gophers and bulls, it really does help. To answer this question a little bit more about what's in the wild,
Yeah, great.
I think there's something that's overlooked, and that is what Lou brought up, and that is they're hard to find in the wild. They're hiding all the time. They are almost always hiding. And I think lots of times that makes it hard for us as keepers to say, oh, well, but I want to see it.
Right.
And it's one of the knocks against rack systems is that, oh, you've got them in that little space. I'm like, well, if they were in the wild, they would try to find a little space. In fact, I open my little space and show them, here's an even littler space in my space, and that's where they always are. And so just kind of knowing that they need that kind of security, that is part of just helping them to feel relaxed and to feel safe. Almost every one of my snakes needs that kind of thing. There are a few snakes that are kind of used to being in the open. Some of the tree snakes are kind of designed to be out in the open, but most snakes really like a safe place to hide.
Definitely. I want to move on to some of the more frequently asked questions too. So these are some basic husbandry stuff. So I know you guys, for a lot of you, this is kind of a no-brainer at this point, but maybe someone watching it has never had a snake before and is looking at a gopher snake or a bull snake as their first. What's a good substrate for these snakes? We'll start with you, Glenn.
Well, I generally say aspen because when I say something else, I end up getting criticized, but I don't use aspen. So I use,
good, but what do you use?
I literally, when people ask me, what do you recommend? I'm like, I'm not going to recommend. I do kiln dried pine, kiln dried and filtered pine. And one of the things I do is occasionally you'll get bags and you can smell the pine, and that's not good, even though you shouldn't with kiln dried. And what I'll do is I'll put them in a big box and put the box outside in the sun, and a day or two, and the smell all dissipates. But usually I don't even need to do that. The other thing I do, especially with bulls, because of the size of when they go to the bathroom, is I mix in some of those wood pellets. You guys know what those are called. They're pellets that are mostly used for breeding rodents. But I'll put in an 1.5 inches, 2 inches of the bedding, and then I'll put in like 4 cups of this wood pellets. And that really helps to absorb the moisture when they go to the bathroom. It really helps to keep the smell down. And, I know people who keep them on newspaper, and I tried that, and man, that's a bad situation for me. After they go to the bathroom, I pull their tub out, I get rid of the paper, I wash the snake, I wash the tub, I wash me, I wash the sink, and it just seems like once you've taken care of that, everything's clean, but it's a big project. Whereas if you have something that can absorb moisture and take that, you can generally scoop all of that out, get it out, and replace that bedding, and it's good as new.
Yeah, excellent. And paper towels are great for a sterile environment or a newspaper, but part of that sterile environment means you have to sterilize it each time they go to the bathroom. Thank you. Jason, what sort of enrichment items do they need? Do they need to burrow or climb? What do they need in the way of hides or humidity hides?
They're a terrestrial snake for the most part. I do have some. I use aspen. I want to try what Glenn talked about. I know those pellets, and I've used them for rodents before. That's a good idea. I might have to try that. I use primarily aspen. I use paper towels and newspaper on smaller stuff too. It's hard when you have a large collection to use the paper and the newspaper and the paper towels. It's almost daily. You need to get in there. Mm-hmm. If you have a small collection, it's great. You can run through your cages 10 minutes every day or whatever, but I just don't have that time, that luxury. I have some that do very well in aspen. They'll burrow in it. My southern pines love it. They just burrow in there. You'll see their head sticking out. Then I have a few that don't love it as much. And some of that's just individual. The snake, it's not exclusively bull snakes. I have bull snakes that do well and some that don't.
what do you feed hatchlings compared to what do you feed an adult, Glenn?
Babies come out for my San Diego gophers eating large pinkies. Bull snakes will eat a large fuzzy coming out of the egg. And then as adults, usually my San Diego gophers, I'll feed a large or jumbo mouse, probably a large mouse for a male, a jumbo mouse for a female. I also feed chicks because chicks are inexpensive. Day-old chicks, you can buy them. If you find the right source, you know, the places that are hatching baby chicks, they immediately pull out all the male roosters because they're not going to lay any eggs. And so you can get them very cheaply for half to a third the price of mice.
Right.
And so I do feed my pits chicks probably half the time, if not 2/3 of the time. And an adult bull might eat 6 baby chicks, adult female. So small adult rats for a full-grown bull.
Cool. Jason, any difference on that?
Pretty much the same. I've recently started using chicks as well. I just think there's not a lot to them, like they're just not very dense. I use the chicks. I think it's a good diversity for the diet as well, to mix it up a little bit, give them a little bit different, you know, vitamins and minerals possibly. I do pretty much what Glenn does. Mice, jumbo mice, rat. I do a lot of rats too.
Cool. So then the next question is, it's kind of a two-parter, and we'll stay with you, Jason. What size enclosure do they need as adults? And should they be in that when they're babies? And then kind of the second part on that is for just your average at-home keeper, what's going to be the ideal situation? Should they invest in like a fish tank or a vision cage or a PVC cage, or are racks the best option? What's sort of the ideal housing situation?
For breeders, rack systems work the best. I use rack systems. I have some 70 quart tubs. I even have some 74 quart tubs. I use a lot for my gopher snakes, I'll even use 70 quart tubs, and that's a pretty good size enclosure. The bull snakes, that's a little smallish. I like to try, if I can get larger, you know, tubs, I would recommend that.
Yeah,
if you're just keeping a few snakes, I would say, like, if you're keeping an adult bull snake or something, a 55-gallon aquarium is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can put some, or anything. I mean, the bigger the better. I would think so. For some of these bigger pits, these gopher snakes. I mean, a 55-gallon aquarium for a San Diego gopher is plenty of room. You could even put sticks in there, and they could utilize the height and stuff as well.
How are they as babies? Do they require a lot of space as babies, or do they do better in much smaller hatchling style tubs?
Yeah, I use shoe boxes and smaller tubs. I like to, and like Glenn touched on that.
Glenn, show us what you got there. Sorry to cut you off, Jason.
Here's a baby that I have, and this is a deli cup with holes so it won't spill, but they can get in and out. And just a little baby San Diego gopher in here. And I do also use paper towels for them as babies, so I can drop food in there and keep moving.
Me too.
But yeah, this is the equivalent of a 6 quart, but it's a little longer and a little narrower.
And you'll notice, Glenn, you probably noticed, you know, those long tubs like that, they just love to stretch along the side of them. They just stretch out along the sides. And I don't know why, I think they feel that's comfortable for them. But
well, it's the only thing where they can be touched by 2 parts of their body, because I don't have a hide in there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's by stretching out, they've got 2 things that they're making contact with.
Yeah, it's an instinct to curl up into a tight space.
For my keepers, I keep hides. For my stuff I'm selling, I don't use hides. But
Yeah,
yeah,
mine don't.
I
Mine
use
don't.
I use a lot of disposable, like cardboard cereal boxes, paper towel rolls. They love those little tight niches. They love getting in those tight cracks. It just they just feel more comfortable if you can give them a hide. I even if I if you had a smaller collection, I would recommend having a Tupperware inside there with a with green moss, damp green moss. They can get in and out of there. Gives them the moisture they need to shed properly, and it's a good hide as well. It's hard to do on a large scale, but if you have a smaller collection, I would totally recommend that. They really enjoyed those moisture hides.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, my keepers don't get their hide until they graduate from that tub, Jason. And I gotta
Okay.
say, every time I throw away a cereal box, I think of you. Because I remember when I went and visited you, you had all the cereal boxes and cracker boxes and all these things as hides on all your animals.
Well, it's great because when they soil in them, you just throw
Yeah,
them away.
Right.
you're gonna throw it away anyway.
Yep.
I think that's I mean, we could probably spend hours just talking DIY sort of hacks to save money on enclosures and hides and water dishes. Like I saw you just had a deli dish with holes cut in it. Or you can go buy a reptile watering dish for, $12.99 at the pet store. So I think there's so many ways. It's extremely valuable to save money by using stuff that you've already have, especially stuff that you might otherwise throw away. But I'm kind of obnoxious when I go shopping. I'm at Target and I'm just looking at completely random stuff. My girlfriend says, "Are you thinking about using that for your snakes?" It's like, yeah, I am. So it's anyways, there's a lot to gain there. That don't always just think because it says reptile on the package that it's the best option. You might be able to find something just as good for cheaper. Wow. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching this. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It really helps move things along and really does a lot for what we're trying to accomplish here, which is helping USARK, but more importantly, helping pet owners become good keepers. So please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It helps out a bunch. If you guys have any questions or want to see more panels, please let me know in the comment section. All that stuff does get read and is definitely listened to. So I really want to hear what you guys have to say. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed learning something today. Stick around. You're going to really like the next panel we have.